Hello guys, I'm Supr Ron, welcome back to the channel and we're here for another Autoshack episode, and this week we're doing something a little bit the same but a little bit different. You've seen me in previous episodes doing carbon cleans on B7 Audi RS4s because they suffer heavily from the intake valves coking up because of the problem with the oil separators and the direct injection not washing it through, and we have done loads of them here now. But this week we're doing something a little bit newer. We've got a B8 RS4 to do the same job. B8 RS4 in, so it's going to be really good to have a look around them, see what improvement Audi made over the years, see what's the same and see what is different. I'm a big fan of these. I think they look absolutely fantastic. They're so mean. They're the 4.2 V8 engine, but they're slightly different to its predecessor. The intakes are a bit different, so we've got to find out how they come off. But we've really got to find out if these engines do suffer with the same coke build-up as the B7s. This one's done about 70,000 miles. It's nearly 10 years old, so it's going to be great to open this up and actually have a look inside. We've also got this absolutely stunning Porsche 964 Carrera 4 that's going to be an episode coming up, and we've got a whole list of jobs on this one. We've got to take the engine out. Previous episode where I did the 911 SC, I dropped the engine and box out together and it was really simple. But this one being four-wheel drive, it's going to be really interesting of the extra parts we've got to take off. So that is going to be on an upcoming episode. Today we are going to be diving into the RS4. So the 4.2 V8 looks very different under here. It's got a different inlet manifold, it's got twin throttle bodies, twin airboxes, so it's all nice and symmetrical, which is very cool. There's loads more room in this engine bay at the front and the rear compared to the B7, which is going to make my life easier. So let's get this inlet off. And that is the inlet off, but it looks like the swell flaps actually stay attached to the head for now. A bit like Gen V throttle bodies, they're on a little flange here, and that's the swell flaps in there. But it's not looking too bad in there. Bit oily on those two middle ones. Bit carbony on there, but doesn't look bad at all. Same this side, the inner ones are a bit more oily, but nothing's looking too bad. So let's get these off. Just a few pipes to disconnect here at the back. Loads more room than the B7, and these just attached to the manifold here. On the B7 there's a really annoying one right at the back that you just can't get to, so this was much easier. So let's get these swell flaps off. Bit of a schoolboy error at this point by Audi. I've got the brackets off. You can't quite get these past the fuel rails, so it looks like you've got to disconnect the fuel rails and all these hard lines just to get the swell flaps out. It doesn't look like they'll twist out at all, which is a bit annoying. So it looks like we've just got to take the injectors out and those fuel lines. I've got these clamps off and I thought I'd take them off and they'd lift off. So there's quite a lot of oil coming out of this inlet. We'll have to give that a clean out. So rail off and then swell flaps off, because these will not come out. So they weren't too bad to come out, they all came apart pretty easily. I've just put them back on to keep the injectors clean. But now we can see in the valves. So you see this one's a little bit carbony. This one's more oily than carbony, it's quite clean. Oily again. Not real build up anywhere. Little bit on that outer one, you can see a little bit there on the valve stem. But for a 70k car, this is spotless compared to a B7. Got a little leaf just fell in that one off the top there. That's alright, we'll get that out. These are just a bit oily. Oily again. So no real carbon problems at all. Probably the outer ones are the worst ones, but by no means are they going to be a big problem. But we'll get the Walnut blaster out and we'll get these cleaned up spotless. These are little sliders in there. Normally these are all cunked up. I haven't cleaned these yet. These are actually how they came out. So you've got this one, or the centre one, is spotless. That's how they should be. So it does look like Audi has solved this problem of clogging up the inlets. However, they've managed to do it. So to find out which valves are closed, I just squirt a little bit of brake cleaner in there and see which inlets are closed. So you can see we've got this one's closed, this one's closed, that one's still open, that one's closed, that one's closed, that one's closed. So we can do 5 all at once, then we'll have to turn the engine over and do the other 3. Let's get Walnut blasting. And they're all coming up really nice, looking as good as new in there. There wasn't much to come off, but the Walnut blaster blasted it all off, sucked it all away, and they are looking pristine in there. So they're all looking really nice. Got that one. This one's looking good. Let's turn the engine over and do the others. That's the covers all off. These have a massive sump under here. Held like 9 litres or something of oil. But it looks a little bit tighter than compared to the B7. We need to get to the alternator, which is just there. Because these don't actually have a bolt in the middle of the crank pulley. So you can't turn the engine over just by putting a spanner on the crank pulley here. And these are the same, no bolt in the middle. So what you've got to do is turn the alternator over, and then the belt will turn the engine over. So now we've got the valves closed on this one. That's got brake cleaner in. And that one, got a bit of fluid stayed in there, so the valves are closed. But this one is still open, so we'll have to do that last of all. So let's retape and get these done. So that's another 2 done. All coming up really, really nice, these are. Coming up like brand new. And the end ones were the worst as well, so they've come up especially good. And we're getting a little bit of overspray everywhere. We often do with these RSs. But luckily it is dry, so it hoovers up. We just get it blasted out, because the little cup isn't quite big enough for the massive ports on these RS4s. So if anyone knows where you can get bigger cups, let us know. So now let's turn the engine over and do this last one. And that's all 8 done. Nice and shiny. And looking good. The end one, this was the worst one. That's come up really nice. All good. We've just got to give that one a little hoover over. Still a couple in there. But we're all ready. Very happy with that. Here's the end where the throttle bodies bolt on. And that's actually where the breathers bolt on. So this is where the oil comes in. And you can see in the inlet chamber, it's really quite oily in there. So we'll get all this cleaned out, wash all that out. So it's just kind of a bit oily, a bit greasy.
That should all wash out nice and easily. So that's a new oil filter at the back in the middle, and 9.7 litres of oil gone in there. So next up is the spark plugs. You can only get to 3 each side, so we're going to have to get these off. And then change all the spark plugs as well. Spark plugs all changed. All 8 done. And I noticed down this side, these are very similar, because this has actually still got the dipstick like the B7. Except for this one has just got a bung in, because it's all computer controlled oil level. But down here it's still got the B7 oil dipstick tube, just got this plug in the top. So I think these are very similar engines. So now let's get all our new bits in. It's had a bit of a cheap service before. You can see it's got blueprint filters have been in, still fine, but we always use genuine. It's got a Bosch oil filter, we've put a genuine one in, and it's got normal NGK spark plugs, which the genuine ones are NGK as well, so they're fine, but we're all genuine Audi'd up. Let's put the rest back together, and all done, fully serviced, decoat, and all cleaned out as well, so should be good to go.
And the other thing we've got to do on this is lower it as well. We've got some lowering springs to go on. These are the same DRC suspension system with the hydraulic lines linking the corners. So we're going to do our little usual tricks and take them out, leave the shocks in there and change the springs in situ. So we don't have to disconnect the DRC and then have to go to Audi to get it all recharged. So we've kind of got the hang of this now. We can just pop the shock out, leave it in the wheel arch, change the springs in situ, and then pop them all back in again. These have, of course, got the dreaded pinch bolt at the top, so hopefully I can take the triangle down like normal and disconnect the arms from the middle. This is my first B8 I've been working on, so it's going to be interesting to see what's under there.
And these are my kind of customers. Thank you very much. Locker wheel nut key. And looking under here at the top suspension, because as always we don't want to touch this pinch bolt, so we undo it from the inners, and it looks like you can get the bolts right out without even dropping the triangle. So that's going to make life easier. So we'll just leave the DRC connected and plumbed in, and just change the spring in the wheel arch like we normally do. The rears don't look too bad, it's separate springs, so we'll just undo the bottom bolt on the shock, drop it down and ping the springs out. So again, it shouldn't be too bad. These are the springs, not sure what they are, but judging by the colour scheme, I reckon they're KW, so it should be a good quality ride. That's the top mount out, so now we've got access. We'll get the spring compressor in, the DRC line still connected. So now we can get this top off, change the springs in situ. And the same on the other side. Poof. All done without disturbing the pinch bolt. All done the same at the top. So now let's get on to the rears. Well, you know what they say, you're only one snapped bolt away from having a real bad day. You can see how rusty this is. That's just seized inside there. They were super tight, but usually they do crack off. But this time, it was a no-go. So we'll continue tomorrow. Well, Lee, the little legend, has come in early and got that bolt out. With a bit of persuasion, some mole grips. You can see how rusted it was in there. And the other one, he got out whole, but that was super rusted as well. But a little bit of heat did the trick. And it is out, so we can continue. So let's get these springs on. And that's the rears all back on, all set at ride height. Got some brand new genuine bolts, lucky they're in stock, so we got them on. Got the springs all on, they weren't too bad to get in. So now all four corners are done, let's get it back on the floor. And back down on the floor and looking meaner than ever. It's a nice subtle little drop, just gets rid of that top arch gap, evens it out a bit more. Looking awesome. Looks great at the back, nice and level. Hopefully it should still ride nicely. So we'll just check the fluids and then get this out for a test drive.
So let's see what these B8s are like compared to the B7s. I've driven a lot of B7 RS4s, we've had quite a few in, but this is the first B8, so it's going to be cool to see how different they are. It feels so much more modern inside. All the clocks, the dash, the centre console is so much more modern than the dated B7, and it does seem they've made some great improvements in the engine area. As far as I can see, it looks pretty much the same engine as the B7 RS4, so I'm not quite sure what they've changed, but whatever it was, it definitely worked. Because it's done 70,000 miles. As far as I can see, there's not been anyone in there before, and when we opened it up, there was hardly any carbon in there whatsoever. If anything, it was more oily than carbony. There's just two ports that had a few little clumps on, but overall it was just quite oily. And me personally, I'd rather have a bit of an oily inlet than a carboned up blocked inlet. They also made it a lot easier to get the inlet off as well, because it's in two parts, so you could leave all the swirl flaps and all the complicated wires, valves and everything attached to the bottom half. And the engine bay is definitely a lot bigger because there's a lot more room at the front and the back of the engine, so it did make the job of stripping it down a lot easier. So I'm not sure what they have changed, but whatever it is, well done Audi. With the new springs on, it has dropped it quite a bit now it's up and moving, but we did it all without removing the pinch bolts and without disconnecting the DRC suspension, so it saved the customer a lot of money and time there. Made it a little bit bumpier, but it still drives really straight. So I must say, I'm a big fan of this. If this YouTubing goes well, I might have to upgrade the RS6 to one of these. But we'll see how that goes. So make sure you like this video. I hope it's been a little bit helpful and a little bit of an insight, because I couldn't find any information of looking inside the B8 RS4s. Even a little Google on how to remove the inlet. There was nothing online at all. So hopefully this has been a little bit helpful for anyone else that's wanting to do this. Definitely be sure to tune in next time, because who knows what we're going to have at Autoshack. It ranges from kit cars to supercars to modern cars to classic cars. We've always got something for someone to watch. So I'm going to get this cleaned up and get it ready for the customer to come and collect it. I think he's going to be very, very happy with the mods and the work we've done. But until next time, make sure you have fun.